パン屋にあるわ。でも、運動で辛いんだけどね。こういうやつもういいのUnfortunately, I have to speak in louder voice. Please chant my very loud voice. Okay, brief introduction. First of all, I want to clarify the effect of this lecture. Unfortunately, this lecture is not a drug. That means it doesn't affect for you very quickly. But this lecture is like poison, good poison, which gradually affects you. That's why please understand this point. And some clarification about this lecture. First of all, please understand what I'm saying. if you cannot understand, please feel free to ask me whenever you want, right? It's very important. And unfortunately, I forgot the feeling of the freshman. So maybe sometimes I will use very difficult words. Then if you think it's difficult, please ask me. It's important for me and you. So please understand. Secondly, please consider to use this knowledge, to try to use this knowledge in the practice. Just because you hear the lecture doesn't make you improve. So it's important to be consciously try to use the knowledge in the lecture. That accumulation of the practice will make you improve. That's why it's important to notice how to use that. Thirdly, I think there are many perspectives for the debates, and this is my perspective. Then it is very biased by me. That's why this is not absolute one. It's important to critically think about this lecture. And if you think, oh, this is very bad, it's important for you not to imitate. Okay? So far, there is no questions? Okay? Okay, go. In this lecture, I will explain first of all, rule. Secondly, based on the rule, opening strategy. Third of all, closing strategy. And last of all, we have some information about point of information for those kind of things. And then conclusion comes first. In this lecture, I will clarify that in BP style, and especially BP style uniquely deprive the judges of rationality. In the BP style, especially judges are irrational. So in order for you to persuade that irrational judges, there are some techniques I will teach you in this lecture. So please understand this outline of the lecture. First, rule. Very so basic rules. We have 15 minutes preparation, 7 minutes speech, OG, OO, CG, CO. Then the same bench pretends to support each other to beat the other side. But actually, even in the same bench, we have to fight implicitly, sometimes explicitly. Therefore, the closing teams cannot say contradicting argument with opening teams. We say this is knifing. Contradicting to the opening, it means knifing, because you have to pretend to support them. Then when opening team is too crazy, judges think there is no way but to contradict to opening, you are allowed to officially contradict to the opening half to knife. Before doing this, you have to read the atmosphere of the debate. Because at the end of this debate, at the end of the day, how judge will think about the definition of the opening is totally depends upon the subjectivity of the opening judges. So it's important to watch the face of judges and read the atmosphere to life. Last of all, when you want to contradict with opening, using even if makes your argument sound not contradictory. Yes, maybe I will explain later in detail. This is basic rules. The basic rule second. Oh, why?
Freshman can't understand the first English because your lecture uses many difficult words.
Oh, right? Sorry. do you have questions in Japanese?
辞書引く時間がもったいなくないか聞きながら。ナイフィングとか日本語で。いや言うたらプリテンドとかもわからない人おるし普通にイングリッシュとか。
オープニングなんかクロージングは 前のチームと味方のふりをしないといけないから、なんか連立政党みたいな感じで、実は仲間やから、実はできないけどね、仲間やからその仲間っぽく見せかけつつも、実はでも自民党より俺らはよくねみたいなそういう感じのことをいい感じに言われたらかくて、その自民党のことを公明党がすごい明確にディスってたら、おいおいあいつら仲間割りしてるやん、よくないやんってなって、そのことをナイフィングっていう。だから頑張ってなんかいい文脈とか使いながら頑張って書かさんとあかんよっていうのがベーシックルールね。でそれは詳しく後で説明します。Then basic rules about order of speech. Following the orders of the numbers above, debaters make a speech. First, Prime Minister. Second, leader of oppositions. Third, Deputy Prime Minister. Fourth, Deputy Leader of oppositions. Then we have no reply speech, which is a different point from the NVA speech, NVA style. Then soon after, the Deputy Leader of opposition, member of government will make speech. The member of opposition, government whip, opposition whip. That's it. Each speaker speaks 7 minutes. Then next up, important point, very important. Who can win in BB debate? Assertion, teams which looked or sounded like contributing the winning of the side from the perspective of judge can win. 自分サイドの勝ちに最も貢献してるってジャッジが思ったチームは勝つ。OK。だからニュアンスとしては、実際に本当にそうかどうかじゃなくて、ジャッジがどう思うかどうかで決まるので、ジャッジを説得する競技っていうのを忘れないでいこう。The ultimate goal of the debaters is persuasion of judge is the ultimate goal. So whatever argument it is, whatever stance you have, whatever reputation you have, the goal of this is to persuade the judges. Then, in order to persuade him or her or whatever, you have to know, first of all, who is the judge, second, what the judge values. で、ジャッジを説得するので、前提として、ジャッジって誰やねんって話と、ジャッジって何を見たいのかなっていうのを頑張って見てみましょう。はい。Who is the judge? In theory, we say judge, average reasonable person.They do not have bias, understand logic, the king of logic, and they are familiar with famous global news like Iraqi war, and assumed to have graduated from university. いい感じの人間っていう感じのことが一応セオリーというかルールではやられていると。でも残念ながら、in reality, judges is a variety types of people, very biased, influenced by the pre-existing authority of debaters. ディベーターの権限というか、すごさ感だからすごいオーソリティ持ってたみたいな、僕とかも4年ぐらいしてるから、なんかちょっとだけうまいかなみたいなバイアスがあるよみんな、そういう感じのやつね。あとspecific ideology みたいな。Some people like to be feminist, some people like vegetarian calculus, like that people have specific ideology. なんかフェミニストが好きな人もいるし、功利主義的な観点をすごい主義的に置いてるやつもいるから、実はめっちゃバイアスがあると。で、sometimes they understand logic.Sometimes, unfortunately, they do not understand it. Sometimes judges are irrational. Then, thirdly, from Japanese citizens to global citizens, that means some judges are not familiar with the global news. They don't know the domestic news. For those judges, it's important to illustrate the case study, not only providing the case study. で知識の偏りもあるので、ケーススタディ言ったやんみたいな、イラキボーって言ったやんって言っても、もうイラキボーのこと知らない人に言ったら意味ないから、ちゃんと分かってなさそうやったら、そこまで丁寧に説明してあげるのも大切だよ。They are not have graduated from universities. They are students like me, so they are not so good. So, in conclusion, it is important to make a speech, being conscious about the spectrum of the judges. So, according to the judges, you have to change your style of the speech.Or be kind for the not so smart judges in order for judges to give you the vote. This is the reality. Please understand this point. That's why if you participate in the awards and the break round and the judges are very sophisticated, maybe just providing a case study will strengthen your argument. But in Japanese competitions, in the preliminary round, the judges are very usual university students. You have to be very kind for them to illustrate what is going to happen whatsoever.だから国際大会とかのブレイクラウンドとかですっげえジャッジゴールの時は多分ね一言ケーススタディ言ったりしたらだったりしてすごいな。でも日本の大会とかの、大学に3回生がジャッジしてるような大会とかでだったら結構頑張って なんか形質制とかシステム制限と多分分かってくれへんっていう感じで、まあリアリティは厳しいと。リアリティは厳しいので、そこを頑張ってスピーチをするのが超大切なんだぜっていう話が前提。ここまでで分かんない人ありますか？ Next, what judge values in BP debates? Basically, judge values what you say to affirm or oppose the motions. It's matter. ジャッジはモーションを肯定は否定するのに、なんて君たちが言ったかなーってのを見ると。まあ、中身を見るとね。中身見るんだけど、actually, matter is influenced by how you say, manner, and what you are expected to say. It's called role fulfillment with respecting the rules. 実際何を言ったかっていうのが、まあ、どういういい感じに言ったかとか、その言ったことっていうのはちゃんとルールを守ってたかとか、ちゃんとそれは自分に決められた役割を果たしていたかどうかっていうところにある程度インフルエンスされるので、まあ、めちゃくちゃいいこと言ってるだけではまあ勝てないっていうのを頑張って理解しよう。ということで、まあ、このマターっていうのを、どういうマターが好まれるのかっていう話していきましょう。What kind of a matter is best to persuade judges? Matter in BP, unique point of BP. In BP, judges have to examine, 吟味しないといけない。Not only how you beat the opposition side, but also how your matter itself contributed to the winning of this debate. Because many teams cannot have direct interaction. This is very unique point of the BP style. For example, OG cannot refute to the CG, and OO cannot refute CO. And also from OG, it's very difficult to refute CO. And also from OO, it's very difficult to refute the CO. That's why examining how that refutation works cannot mean you can win this debate. So, judges want the standard, which we can use commonly to decide who is the winner of this BP debate. The quality of matter is most basic standard to use in order to compare 4 different teams. Let's examine what is the key factor to decide the quality of matter. ディベートは BP は特にこの斜めのコンパリゾンとか横のコンパリゾンがあるから、そのいい感じにこのレピュテーションがめっちゃ伝ってるからこっちが勝ちとかいうやつがたまに使えないとか結構使えないので、まあ、そのアーギュメントそのもので評価しないとなかなか難しいところがあると。でその時にそのアーギュメントのマターのクオリティというのが超大事なファクターになってくるので、まあ、敵を倒すっていう観点じゃなくて、まあ、どんだけ生きているアーギュメントを作れるかっていうのが BP ですごい大切っていうあるかな。例えば for example in NA style even if your argument is very, very weak, if your reputation is very good, then you can beat the opposition side, you can win. But in BP style, if your argument is weak, that means that closing the team is easy to override your argument. Because if they increase the quality of the matter, they can easily override. So it's important for any teams to care about quality of matter, not only for the reputations, but also the construction of your argument. It's very unique point in matter. Then in matter, there are 3 important points. Before that, questions. 質問ある? Okay, go. First, very important part in BP is about the relevancy. It's said in any way, uniqueness, whichever is fine. Then relevancy is especially important in BP because examining the relevancy is the easiest way to compare 4 teams. In BP debate, not only horizontal comparisons, but also vertical and diagonal comparisons are needed. So relevancy is the biggest factor to compare many teams. How you are contributing to the debate? Then for example, if opening government talked under the motion of this house would ban tobacco, OG talked about the harm of tobacco. It's very relevant. If CO talked about the harm of marijuana, it's irrelevant. That means even if OG cannot refute the CO, in terms of the quality of the matter and the relevancy, OG is overriding. It's superior to the closing opposition. Like that, this relevancy is very important to examine the winner of this debate. Okay, in terms of relevancy, do you have questions? No?
What does the uniqueness mean?
Uniqueness means it's the same as relevancy. How what you said is relevant to the motions. How your argument is connected to the motions. For example, this house would ban tobacco. You have to talk about tobacco. If you talk about the marijuana, it's irrelevant. Okay. Very simple example. Okay. But especially in BP, the motion is a little bit difficult because we have to prepare the topic which closing team can do and also opening team can do. So maybe the wording of motion is a little bit complicated compared with the anyway style. So the examining those words is very important to increase your relevancy. Okay, I will explain later. The second part, important in the quality of the argument matter, is a burden of proof. 証明責任を果たしているかどうかですね。Your matter should meet the BOP of your side in order to affirm or oppose the motions. Then judge will evaluate what to extent you meet the BOP of your side. The burden of proof comes from the motions and the argument in the debate. And the latter is more important. For example, this house of the ban tobacco, from the motion, uniquely from motions, we can assume the burden of proof. We have to prove why government can legitimately ban tobacco. モーションだけ見るだけやったら、タバコをバンする正当性だけ言えばいいんかなっていう感じだと。But actually, from debate, when the opposition says we have to respect the choice. Respect choice to smoke tobacco. Your burden is not enough in the above. Burden will be to explain why, even if we restrict the choice of citizens, government can legitimately ban tobacco. This will be the burden of your side. Then, if opening government just talk about the very selfishly without considering the opposition's case, just talk about why health is important only, they cannot win. If closing government talked about that even if we consider the choice of citizens, why we can ban the tobacco, if we can do so, they are meeting the burden of proof more than the opening half. So their argument is better than the opening half. わかるかな？今の分かった？大丈夫？そこの反対先生大丈夫？いけてる？よし。So it is important to predict your burden of proof and try to meet it. I will explain it later, more detail. Do you have a question? No? Okay. Materialization. The third point in the quality of a matter is materialization of the arguments. Judge values how strongly you constructed the arguments. Judges cares whether your premise, like context characteristics, nature of something, or mechanism with various illustration of a case study, impact on the principle was sufficiently explained compared with the other side. That means that even if you have a good idea, if you are not materializing that arguments well, that means if closing half did a good job to materialize the arguments with very precise illustrations, you are very likely to lose this debate. For example, in this house with the ban tobacco motions, OG just says, tobacco is sometimes harmful for your health. Then if that's it, closing argument can easily say that. I will explain the nature of the tobacco, how exactly it is influential for the health of the people, and how exactly this will make people irrational. Then if closing argument sufficiently explain that, that argument is well materialized than the opening argument. That's why your argument is better than the opening argument to affirm the motions. And then also the construction of arguments is also an important part to evaluate that. アイディアだけじゃなくて、アイディアをいい感じにいかに構想したかっていうのが大事で、なんか反対でやってるやつはいい感じのどんだけいい感じの家を作れたかみたいな、その前提から土台からちゃんと丁寧に埋めて、ちゃんと屋根までつけて、雨にも耐えうる家を作ってる方が評価されやすい。But those three parts are the very important parts of the matter in BP. Do you have questions about this? で、ほんまに Please feel free to ask whatever you want. なかったら僕のレクチャーがいいってことだからいいけどな。Okay.
The opening side, maybe they said like something, a very good idea, like from premise, but they don't have something to sort of like illustrate their point. But then the closing one has the same, like sort of like same argument, but they have like better illustrations. So that does that make this closing like better than the opening? But it's still the opening idea. I mean, like.
It depends on the motion and how you present the failure of the government and contribution from the government side. That even if your contribution is just providing the case study, just illustrating that harm of what OG said, but if you can prove this proving reality is more important than just suggesting the idea, you can be the first. But if you cannot prove why that illustrating or proving the case study is more important than suggesting the idea, maybe you cannot override the OG. But it's important to think about the importance of your argument, how your argument about that illustrations can override the contribution of the OG. It's very important, and also it depends on the case, I think, and momentum of the debate. I will explain later, maybe DKD.
なんか分かった今の質問。なんか OG がアイディア出して CG がいい感じにそれをマテリアルとしてイラストとかしたけど、そのアイディアは OG から出てるのにそんなに CG からのコントリビューションは強いのみたいな感じで質問が来たから、状況によるって言っていい感じにそのケーススタディとかイラストレーションをすることがアイディアを出すことよりかは重要なんじゃないっていうふうにプレゼンができれば勝てる。それはちょっと難かったり難しくなかったりするから、それは状況によるのであれですと。ジャッジのリング基本的にっていう感じ。Do you have any other questions?
So you proceed from relevancy to European to materialization of arguments. So basically that's like step by step the way the judge is going to like.
No, step by step, all of them. I think it's important. Even if argument is relevant, if you are not materialize this, maybe your argument is not enough to affirm the motions. We need those are necessary things. どれがステップバイステップになってるかなってないかっていうので、全部が全体でもレレバンシーどんだけあってもマテリアルされてなかったら結局あんまし意味ないので、いい感じでレレバンシーもありつつマテリアルもされてるし、しっかりそれがバードのプルーフを満たしてるっていう話をしっかりしてます。バードのプルーフとレレバンシーっていうのは実は言うて一緒なんだけど、一緒じゃないんだけど一緒なところもかぶってるところもあって、でもすごい重要なアイデアなのでちょっとわざと切り離して説明してます。いいですか？ The next one. So, for the solid and strong materialization of your argument, it's important to prove each part of your argument without skipping any of those. Now, the blue part is concerned with the preparations. Let's skip. The yellow part, premise, mechanism, impact. It's very important. And the first principle, maybe in terms of principle, maybe you are not learning yet so much.
スライドのところでいきましょう。
ここか違うな。ここだけでいいかな。
それやる。
ここも来たらいいか。
多分そっちなの。
暗くない？
眠くならなければ。眠くなりそうな症候群なんか予備軍がいっぱいおるの見てて。頑張れ、僕も頑張ってるから。眠くないよ。Maybe rookies are not familiar with first principle or second principle, but in addition to proving the impact, if you can prove first principle or second principle, you can win much more. Later, I will explain. Then, fourthly, in terms of matter, but a little bit irrelevant to the matter, but also engage is an important part to persuade the judges. And the point is that even if opening government cannot directly refute to CEO closing oppositions, but still judges can see how opening government are responding to the other side, opposition side, as much as they can. That kind of occasion, judge values how efficiently you engage with the other side for the winning of side. Not only direct refutation in your speech, but also point of information will be the very important engagement for the other side. And then especially engagement of the point of information by the team, which cannot directly refute is important factor to decide the superiority of the team. For example, from OG to CEO or CG. I will explain that in the end of this lecture. Then, it's like when OG and CG has the same amount of the same quality of the argument, then when OG make effort to refute O, then CG, their matter is a little bit good, samely good as OG, but they are not refuting to OO and CO. When those kind of situations, judges can say that, even if the quality of matter sounds the same in the opening argument and the CG, but the amount in terms of engagement, OG was superior. Because at least OG made effort to engage with the opposition side. Even if OG cannot refute the CO, still they made effort to O. But compared to that CG, even though they have sufficient amount of the time to refute to OO and CO, they failed to that. That's why in terms of engagement, OG can still win. That's why engage is very important to win the debate. Do you have questions about engage? Go. Then summary. In terms of matter, especially in BP, talking about relevancy, caring about relevancy, BOP, materialization of arguments, and engagement. These four factors are very important to persuade judges in BP debate. Next, manner. As I said, that matter is very influenced by the manner, because 4 teams comparisons and a very short time to decide winner will make judges panicked and irrational. That means, as I said in the introductions, judges are structurally very likely to be irrational in BP debate because there are many things to compare, and also that in real tournament, it's very short time to decide the winner. We have discussions with the people who might be irrational. That's why it's very difficult for judges to make ranking. That's why structurally judges are panicked and irrational. That's why manner is very important, because irrational judge is very weak at the possibility of people, right? So the impression of your team is very important to attract judges. That's why please make efforts, whatever, to increase your impressions. The manner means everything which you make your argument sound great. Good for rhetoric, good for voice, good English, explicit explanation about the importance of your arguments, proper body language, glasses, beard, muscle, whatever. Many things. Please utilize that things, I think. In terms of manner, do you have questions? No? Okay. Role fulfillment. Role fulfillment is a term which is used the role of the teams, the role which the team has to fulfill. And each team has expected goal to fulfill in BP. So in your speech, you have to fulfill that. If you don't do this well, this can be a reason to devaluate your teams. ロールフルフィルメントってやつがあって、これをするよなっていうのがあるんだよな。それをせえへんかったら、おい、それしてへんでこのチーム雑魚いかみたいな感じになるので、それをするのが超大事です。And then basic role fulfillment of the opening, especially for OG, setup of this debate. What's the definition? What the model you stand for the easy and fair debate. Then if you OG skip this, you are very de-evaluated. And also from OO, challenge for the definition of debate provided by OG, if necessary. The only when the definition is too crazy and unfair, OO can challenge that and provide a proper fair definition of motion. I will explain it later, but actually detailing. This should be done explicitly in everyone's speech. Or also the other role fulfillment is identifying new problems and suggest a solution and try to solve it. That's it. The more importantly, role fulfillment in closing. This is very important. The rule, what is expected for the closing teams is first, provide extension. Extension means everything, which opening has not provided. New arguments, new reputations, new context whatsoever, new case study whatsoever. Then next is more important, to provide the reasons why the extension matters. Why extension is very important in this debate. Not only providing an extension, but also providing the importance of extension is required for closing teams. Skipping this part is very likely to be the reason of you losing the debate. Therefore, it is extremely important to explicitly try to explain the importance of your extensions. ほんまにこれが一番クロージングが負ける理由に多くて、judges often say, oh, I got your extensions. It was good, but your team has not explained to me why your extension is more important than the opening teams. This is very very often common excuse for judges to devaluate closing teams. That's why to prevent this from happening, you have to do this very super explicitly. And this is a very important part. Especially for the Japanese judges, I think this is very important. Foreign judges have enough courage to intervene on the situation of the debate, even if that debaters hasn't explicitly proved the importance of your arguments. Still, judges automatically decide why this is important, I think. But in terms of the Japanese judges, they don't have courage. They think that intervening in this situation is my arbitrary decision, so it is not good judges. So if this debate hasn't said anything, it's better for me not to take that. みたいな感じで、日本人たちはビビるので言ってないことを取るの。まあ、確かにどっちが正しいかは言えへん。外人も勝手に介入するかもしれん。ビビるので、取ってくれへんから、いや、当たり前やろって思うことでも結構言わんとマジ通じひん。ので、しっかり、please explicitly explain why your extension matters. I will explain that later, how to do this. This is the term of role fulfillment. Then, if the quality of argument is the same, the role fulfillment will be can be the very big reasons to decide the ranking of this debate. So it's important to fulfill this. Technicality.
質問いいですか。
OK.
ロールフルフィルのところで最近なんか質問なんですけど、最近疑問に思ってるんですけど、なんかオープニングハーフっていうのは自分たちのアーギュメントがなんで大事かっていうのをエクスプリシットリーにやってもあんまり意味ないっていう感じです。
Yeah, I think it's the question from Yuta is that is the opening half necessarily prove the importance of their argument? Closing half required to prove the importance of the argument, then vice versa. What about opening half? I think it's better to prove the importance, of course, then so that how your argument is speaking about the core parts of the debate is also important for the opening argument. But I think same really important, but compared with the closing, maybe the burden of the opening to prove the importance is less, I think, but it's better to prove anyway. But the closing especially required to prove the importance compared with the opening half.
なんかあんまりエクスプリシットリーにしてるチームを見たことがないんですけど。
No? Yes, I think in Japanese debate I haven't seen so much, but in the world's debate, like Boseo, they are very explicitly doing this. The importance of this argument is. Yeah, I think the good debaters are doing. So it's better to learn from them. Especially this is irrelevant arguments, but especially for the DPM or DLO, the second argument is very less likely. It's very difficult for judges to put priority. So when you talk about different things with the first speaker in opening, it's very important to explicitly say why this is important. セカンドの時とかは、オープニングのセカンドの時とかは、ファーストが出てるアーギュメントはもちろん重要や。出てるんやから。わかるやん。でもセカンド、わかるセカンドが出てるアーギュメントってさ、セカンドが出てるなって思うやん。だから、なんでセカンドが出てる時にこれが超大事なのかっていうのをセカンドが上手にうまく説明できると、セカンドのスピーカーだいぶ上がると思う。くれるかな。
So, like for opening teams, I think there are several ways to pretend why their arguments are central of the debate. One is not jump into your argument, but like link your arguments to the motion. Like when Prime Minister or leader of the opposition starts to speak their argument suddenly, like I have 3 arguments, it's difficult for judges to assume why those arguments are important. But if you say like this motion means blah blah blah, and the context of this debate is blah blah blah, if you fill in the premise before explaining arguments, it's easier for judges to assume that those arguments are important in this round. いきなりアーギュメント言うんじゃなくて、このモーションはこういう意味でとか、このモーションってこういう地域で起きてっていう前提を埋めてからアーギュメントを言うと、 ジャッジもそれがインポータントって考えやすいっていうのが1個と、and the second way now I came up with is to show question what which are necessary to affirm or to oppose motion. Right? This motion requires us to answer 3 questions in this way. First question is blah blah blah, second question, third question, blah blah blah. By doing so, judges can understand the necessary elements to discuss the motion. Then if you completed those questions, judges can assume that your arguments are important. なんかモーションにおいてこういう問いが大事ですっていうのを自ら言って、それを答えきることでジャッジもじゃあこのアーギュメント大事やなっていうふうになんか考えることができるから後ろに対して比較はできないけど自分たちのアーギュメントとモーションの比較はできるからそれをやるといいかなっていう。So opening teams can't directly compare your argument and closing team's argument, but at least you can compare your arguments with the nuance or implicit requirements from the motions. So it's better for opening teams to do so. I think, like Shunya said, many Japanese teams are not doing so, but I think strong Japanese debaters are at least implicitly doing so in his, for example, introduction or speech or nuance reading arguments, etc. っていう感じです。補足です。はい。
Thank you. Then I will explain later more about the opening strategy. Then if you have questions, even after the opening strategy, please ask me. Okay, do you have any questions about goal fulfillment? No? Okay, technicality. About keeping the book of this debate. For the fair debate, BP has some unique rules. If you do not follow the rules, the team will be devaluated. So please be careful about the rules. Maybe 3 rules. Maybe there are many detailed rules, I think, but main rules. First, take point of information. This is important because the direct interaction is very rare in the BP debate. So especially from the diagonal positions, 対角のね、斜めのpositions からは it's better to take the point of information. Secondly, don't say new arguments from whip speech. But the new material is okay. I will explain it later. Third, don't do knifing. Knifing means to contradict with your opening. If you knife, basically, the part you knifed was not evaluated in this debate. That means, even if you do the knifing, it doesn't mean you will lose. The part you knifed was not explained and is not evaluated, but the other part is evaluatable. Then those are the rules. Then if you are not keeping these rules, for example, you are closing oppositions, then even though opening government are constantly appealing for the point of information, then if you are not taking that point of information, then when the OG's argument and the CO's argument, the quality is the same, and the other actor criteria sounds the same, that kind of occasion, this can be the reason for judges to devaluate the CO, that even though the quality of arguments from OG and the CO is mainly same, but in terms of technicality, CO was not so kind for the OGs. They denied a very important accessibility from the OG's reputations, point of information. So I think OG had no chance to refute the CO. That's why I think it will be a legitimate reason to devaluate CO like that. If you are not keeping the technicality, you are likely to devaluate it in the last resort. Then, and what is new argument? This is very controversial. And in conclusion, this is very contingent upon the subjectivity of judges. Judgeによる. If judge thinks this is new, this will be new. If judge thinks if it's not new, it's not new. But basically there is some standard. Generally judge regard these following as new arguments, entirely new reasons to do things. To do things means to cause something, right? Claims that a new thing will happen, a mechanism, claims of a new moral truth, like principle. Then generally judges regard these following as a new material. That means which whip can say. New defenses of arguments already made. New explanations of previously made arguments or rebuttal to the CO or CG. New example to support existing arguments. or anything the other side can reasonably be expected to understand the them intended from their member speech. That part of reasonably is very totally contingent upon subjectivity of the judges, so it's important to read the atmosphere or pretend to not to say new arguments. Do you have questions? Okay. Then conclusion, in order to win in BP debate, with respecting the rules, technicality, and word fulfillment, let's persuade judges by explaining wonderful matter which have relevancy, meeting burden of proof, and the materials well, and refute it to the other side in a brilliant manner to win BP debates. This is how we can win in BP debate from the perspective of judges. This is the first summary of the first point. Do you have some questions regarding the first point? Okay. Do you understand how to win in BP?
About the knifing thing, I did like a practice with you guys earlier, but then the opening opposition, they were also knifed by the closing opposition. But then what the closing opposition did was just like taking the idea of those on like the government bench, support it, and then like not support it, but like refute it. But at the end, the judge said that the opening opposition was like ranked last because the whole argument was against by those three teams. So basically, the closing government, the closing opposition, they knifed their own like bench, but they still have like higher rank.
Yes, if this judge was Joshua, right?
Yes.
If judge was that, and that time his judge was a little strange.
多分質問が入ってないです。
Dan said, except for the OO, they have the consensus of the characterizations. The even judge believes definition of the OGCGCO about some characterization is true. Then OO got the least, even though CO are knifing for the OO. In the rule, because CO are knifing to the OO, it means the CO's argumentation should not be evaluated, but Joshua neglected that. That's is very difficult, but this is maybe because Joshua believes that reasonably OO's definition is terrible. He thinks so. It depends on how you present from the closing oppositions actually, but that possibility is still existing that OO will be evaluated and the CO can get because judges think this is very bad. But basically, I don't think this is good the way to judge. そんぐらいかな。難しいな。まあ、プレゼンの仕方とかにもよるよ。多分いい感じに、if CO makes even if arguments, even if we concede the government side's arguments, still we can show superiority. Like that, by using the even if arguments, you can pretend to not to contradict the OO's arguments. So that presentation is important to persuade the judges to vote for you. Okay. Do you have questions about how to win the debate from the perspective judges to persuade irrational judges? Okay. Yes. Okay. Having clarified how judges are irrational and how we can win the debate, let's go to opening strategy. まだ3分の1か。Okay. Opening strategy. Simply, this is a definition how to win. So please fulfill this. How to do preparations. It's very important preparation. Through examination of wording of motion and prediction of overview of the debate, let's decide the BOP of your team and how to meet the burden of proof. That is to say, how to answer the central question of the debate within the preparation time. Then, I think in BP, prediction, yosoku, is especially important because opening cannot refute to closing directly. That means preemption is important to make our arguments persuasive. Preemption means 先取り、先にもプレレバットル、
先にもういい感じにどこが何も言えないようにしとくとか、僕が何言おうがこのプリンシプルは立ってるんで。And secondly, because we don't want to waste time by explaining arguments which the other side doesn't oppose. Because the BP, your team only have 14 minutes to persuade the judges. That means that you have to efficiently use that. If you waste time, 5 minutes in your speech by explaining the very consensus part, that means you have to win the debate with the rest of the time left. So it's important to efficiently use that time. So prediction is important in BP style. Then, actually how we do that? First of all, when motion comes, you have to examine the wording of motion. Motion no wordingを吟味しましょう. You have to do 3 examinations. First, definition of the wording. Let's use the dictionary. Second, let's examine the weight of the word. 重さ of the word. Important to grasp the proper burden of proof of you. For example, allow means or light. We don't necessarily force people to use that. People who want to use can use. Ban is heavy. People want to use can use. Imposing tax. Imposing tax doesn't mean we are banning. Still the choice is available like that. It's light. And thirdly, most importantly, you have to extract the unique point from the word. Examine the unique nature of the wording. It's very important to make most relevant. As I said before, the relevancy is very important idea in the BP style. So it's important to extract the unique points from the word. Maybe you are doing in the NUS style. For example, tobacco. This is also general. It's bad for health and also very addictive. If you are just talking about bad for health, it doesn't contain the very unique nature of tobacco. That means your argument is very likely to be irrelevant. So it's important to extract unique point. And also the unpaid. This house would ban unpaid internship. Like if you define unpaid, it's like not rewarded. It doesn't directly catch the nuance from the motions. Motion says unpaid. That means not rewarded by money. The why not rewarded by money is unjust. This is your burden of proof. But extracting the very unique nature of the wording is very important. なんかユニークネスをいい感じに抽出してくださいって話で、アンペットって、日本人はちょっと外人がしてたら当たり前なんだけど、日本人からしたら報酬がないぐらいのからちょっと思っちゃう時があんねんたまに。しかも BP15 分しかないからプレパレーション焦んでんな。で例えばアンペンドその報酬のないインターンシップ禁止みたいなモーションがあったとして、もし OG の PM が報酬がないのは良くないみたいな感じで頑張って言っても、大からいやその経験値っていう報酬があるやんとか、その職場でなんかそのもっとその面接とかでうまくいくっていう報酬があるやんみたいな言われたら、ああってなるやん。だから最初からなんで金でサラリーとして払われてないのが問題なのかっていうのを取れると強い。なのでそのアンペットのディフィニッションをちゃんとお金で報酬を得れないっていうふうに最初からいい感じでエクストラクトできると強いアーギュメントが作れるよって感じ。って感じで it's important to examine the wording of motions. Then after examining the wording of, do you have questions?
If there are a lot of words, like for example, what's the motion before this house would regret the dominant narration that good always wins. There are a lot of words in there, right? Prominent, and then good, and then win, and then good always wins, that sort of thing. So where do you have to give definition of every word, or just focus on?
2 responses. Questions from them is that there are many wording which should be focused on, especially in BP because the wording is very long. That occasion, what we should do. There may be 2 responses. First, as much as possibly, please extract unique nature of the wording and please cover up the every important nature of that wording and create your burden of proof as much as possibly. And secondly, if you think that some nature or some wording is not so relevant to affirm the motions, so you can put priority what part is most important in this wording to affirm. Yes. Then if you can prove in your speech why focusing on this wording is extremely important in this debate, maybe you can justify. But still you can leave some room for closing the team to take the unique point of that things. Because if opening arguments are not extracting the every nature
of the wording, it means that some nature is available for the closing teams. The closing team can use that. If the closing team is good enough to utilize these chances, maybe opening government might lose. But sometimes it's important to focus on some important word. こんな感じで、めっちゃ長いけど、長い時は、頑張ってなるべくいっぱいいろんなワーディングの重要なところをファームしに行くか、ほんまに無理そうやったら、その中で特に重要そうなやつを選ぶんだよ。特に重要そうなやつからいい感じに満たしていくと、強い、それでもクロージングがちょっと抜きにくくなるのではないかということですね。Do you have questions about examination on the word in motion? Go to next. Secondly, especially in BP, prediction. An overview of debate. Two predictions. First, prediction of the most relevant and strong argument from the other side. It's very important to make your relevant BOP, because as I said, BOP, もう BOP に説明したっけ？したか？したね。でも後です。そうか。In terms of BOP, it's very important to be kind for the other side. Conceding their strong argument is very important. On that occasion, if you fail to predict the most relevant and strong argument from their side, your BOP is kind of different BOP. For example, in the motion about this house will ban tobacco as government, if you predict opposition's strongest argument is the corruption of the company, tobacco company will go bankrupt. If you predict so, even if tobacco company will go bankrupt, the government can legitimately ban tobacco. If you set this burden proof, even if you prove this, but if the opposition side stands for the other most relevant, strongest argument, your even if will go in vain. So it's important to predict what is important and relevant, strong argument from the other house as much as possible. Secondly, prediction where the other side wants to oppose the most. That means identify most important question in the debate. It's important to know what analysis is going to be important to actually meet BOP of your side. Okay, these predictions are important. The examination, predictions. After these, let's finally decide burden of proof of your teams in the preparations. At the end of these, you have to decide your BOP in this debate, considering three things: clear, relevant, kind for the other. Kind for others means care the strongest argument of enemy, use even if, deal with the inconvenient case for your side. In BP's system, in every BOP, I think, it's important to deal with the inconvenient case for your side. Because there should be inconvenient cases for you if the motion is fair, right? If the AC is bad, they are irrational, sometimes the government can prove everything without feeling inconvenience. But maybe there are some inconvenient cases for you, for example, forced choice, irrational choices. That's why it's important to justify that point. That's why, for example, under the motion of this house, the ban tobacco, government the burden of proof will be, even if we limit the important choice of individual to smoke tobacco, this is a kind of part. Why government can legitimately ban tobacco, which harms health and has addictiveness? But this will be the burden of proof to consider the strongest argument from the opposition side. This is the BOP. Then it's important to create your argument to solve this BOP, to meet this BOP. As well, it's a very important part of the preparation to extract your BOP from the examination of the motions and prediction of the how opposition will oppose the motions. This is very important part to create very strong sense. Do you have questions about creating a BOP? Let's practice. Example of the process to decide the BOP, because maybe it's difficult to understand the BOP just because you watched this word. For example, this has allowed public servants the right to strike your government. First, you have to examine the wording. Definition, please use dictionary. I recommend English to English dictionary because it's precise more than the Japanese. Secondly, let's examine weight. This motion says allow, so we don't force everyone to use it. Then we have to prove having the right
to use is important. Thirdly, let's extract the unique nature. Public servants, essential state services often, like police and firefighter, consent to the absence of the right to strike, have some privilege, their salary comes from the tax of citizens. The right to strike means appeal the improvement in working conditions by actually doing boycott to work. Maybe these are the natures I can come up with. わかるかな？ポリスやファイアファイターみたいなすごい重要な仕事とか、ライトトゥストライクがないよっていうのにもう知ってるみたいな、もうすでにコンセントもしてるよみたいな。あとはなんかサムプリビレッジ、特権もあるみたいな。まあサラリーが良かったり、安定した職だったり、まあソーシャルレギュレーションが良かったりするみたいな。なんでまあサラリーはシーズンのポケットから来てるよねみたいな話。でやつがまあネイチャーだよねみたいな感じで、Let's examine the burden of proof wording over our side. Do you have a question? No, perhaps. Now we are demonstrating how we can decide our burden of proof actually. Secondly, you have to predict the debate. First, predict on the relevant and strong argument from above. Maybe opposition will argue that some jobs, like police and firefighters, are essential to maintain social security and utility, so it's important to sacrifice someone. The best actor will be the public servants who have consented to get privilege at the expense of the absence of the right to strike. Secondly, prediction on the clash of the debate. Maybe oppo will say without the right to strike, they can protect public servants in their side by suggesting the alternative way. And they might say protecting innocent citizens is most important. Then by covering up this BOP, it's important to decide your BOP actually. Even if public servants, blue part is kind of part, to consider their side. Even if public servants have consented, they have some privilege and the job is essential to maintain social security, why government should allow them to have the right to strike, the right to actually boycotting the job to appeal improvement of working conditions. Maybe this will be the big burden of proof you should make in your arguments. Do you understand how you can create your burden of proof? Wait. Okay. It's very difficult, but please try. Then, that point is important. This is difficult to achieve the BOP. That's why I will tell you how you can meet the burden of proof. After deciding about BOP, you have to make a strategy to meet the BOP, to win the debate. This is important, very important, very, 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 very important. Without the strategy, you are very likely to lose. Okay? If you do not have a strategy, you are lose. So please share the strategy to win debate efficiently, effectively with your partner. If you do not have a strategy, maybe it means you are not dealing with the inconvenient cases for you, or also you cannot share the good, strong argument with your partner. That means there are sufficient amount of the room for the closing half to take over. So it's important to have strategy. It's very important. Decide the BOP, and based on the BOP, in order to meet BOP, please make strategy. Then I will explain 3 major strategies. Flip, priority, specific principle. Let's go. Flip in debate means providing opposite things to happen or opposite value judgment we are going to have. For example, if government say we can protect the choice of people, you can flip this by saying our side can protect the choice more than your side. If government say people will die, it is bad, the impact value judgment, you can flip this by saying people might die, but we say it is good. The flip is the easiest way to deal with the inconvenient cases for you, meeting the burden of proof. Right? I will explain later, but talking about principle is very difficult, I think. So it's very easier to talk about practical. Then this is the easiest way to prove your side. Then at least, even if you cannot overraise their benefit, it's okay to make time situations on their strongest argument. Then if their strongest argument is the same quality as our side, we can prove by flipping whether which is better for protection of the life is very ambiguous. Then if your strongest argument is still remain in this debate, you can win, right? That's why the flip is very important. For example, if job or public, in the last motions we can say, if job or public servant is so essential as you said, it is important to improve quality of service by giving them proper working conditions so that they can work very energetically to save citizens. If you can prove from the government side, the absence of the right to strike is rather worsen the quality of service. As a consequence of that, people will die on your side. If we can protect that quality of service, that means we can protect much more citizens on our side in long term. If you can prove this point, you can meet your burden of proof, right? So it's very important to flip the argument. It's very one of the ideas you have to have in order to win the debate. In terms of the flip, do you have questions?
Oh wait, I was asked the previous one when you create the BOP. So when do you state it, the BOP? At the very first? I mean, at the signpost of your.
No, BOP is just the beginning of your preparations, and after reading the motions, you will create that. Then based on the BOP, you will create signpost. You will create argument. You will create those things. Okay. This is the premise of your argument. いつ BOP 作んねんとかいつやんねんって話だけど BOP を作ってからそれをいい感じに伝えるサインポストを作ったりするよっていう話をした。Do you have questions? はい。
なんかシュアンさんのピラミッドのスタンスはその BOP とこの場合一緒ですか？
ああ、一緒一緒。OK。眠い？頑張れ。頑張ったぞ。まあでもそんな寝てないけどね、みんな。頑張って寝てるけどね。いきますよ。Next strategy, second strategy is making priority. Ultimately, this is the consequence of flipping, but I add different nuance. If you can put priority on the value each side stands for, you can easily meet the burden of proof. You say that what enemy wants to protect is premised upon the value your side protects. So in order to achieve the value of your enemy, we have to achieve our value first. So if we can prove that, we can make priority. あっちのバリューを達成するためにはこっちのバリューが先にないとっていうふうにですね。For example, the easiest example is social ability versus academic ability in education. We can say whatever, but opposition say social ability is very important because in the job interview we have to be good at communicating. If opposition says so, you can say as a side to protect academic ability. In order to utilize your social ability in the future in job interview, you have to pass the academic career filter in the first place. Without that academic ability in the first place, you cannot reach out the place to utilize your social ability. So it's more important to protect the academic ability in the first. Like this, if you can make the priority, you can meet your burden proof. Why it has to be protected. Then, unfortunate fact, maybe in the freshman lecture, we teach you making comparisons like impact or the vulnerability or long term or short term. But that comparison is less likely to make sense in the BP or the senior debates because it's difficult to justify why that criteria especially is important to be used as a comparison. For example, even if government can protect vulnerable persons, why it is okay to sacrifice the other people? Even if government can save more number of people, why harming individual very seriously is okay. Those things is very controversial, so it's very difficult to decide the winner in the very practical comparisons. So that is not so recommendable, but it still can be useful if opposition doesn't say, oh, this criteria is arbitrary. Why just because they are vulnerable you can win? If government opposition side do not do this, or they do not suggest the other criteria, maybe you can win. but it might be not so good. So this is much important because you can making priority because you are not making comparisons between value. You are just making comparison in order to achieve both of the value, which is better. So I think this can be efficient. Do you have questions about this part? Okay, third, difficult, a little bit difficult, but it's very common. Specific principle, like drawing the line, in terms of in my pyramid, this says second principle. After providing the first principle in your speech, the very principle of your value. If you can prove the second principle specifically, you can be superior to the other side. If the enemy failed to prove a specific principle, the most very familiar principle is choice. What I mean by first principle of choice is just the importance of the choice. Basically, we say government cannot know the emotion of the people, so preparing the amount of the many choices is very prerequisite of the achieving the happiness of the individual. This is the first principle, I say. In the first place, why choice is important. But this first principle doesn't explain that what to extend this, especially when that choice is very important, especially why this choice of this motion is very important. So, even if opposition has successfully generally talked about the importance of the choice, if they have not proven in what moment especially choice will be important, we can, as government, can draw the line by saying, yes, we concede choices is true. It's important generally only when people are rational enough to reflect their true value for decisions. So we already banned irrational choices of people, like hard drug whatsoever. Then if we prove specifically today's case, people are irrational, we can win. Like this, even if we concede the importance of the value the other side stands for, but we can still oppose the specific line of their side. So by doing this, we can make superiority to our side of the house. But this will make sense only when opposition fails to prove second principle. But in many cases, many people cannot prove the good drawing a line, so this will be very effective. But if opposition is very successfully talked about the second principle, then we have to fight by the persuasiveness of analogy, or the flipping, or the other things. Remember, this is very high level. This is very difficult. But in the first strategy, these three are very important. The flipping, making parity, specific principle. So if you decide your burden proof, let's decide how you can meet the burden proof. You will talk about principle, or you are trying to flip the argument, or you are going to make priority. It's very important to strategy. Then it's important, if you can do, it's important to carry out the strategy from the first speaker. The strongest debater, like Boseo, are doing this from the first speaker, but basically this is very difficult. If you focus on too much about carrying out this strategy from the first speaker, sometimes you forget explaining very important premise of your argument. So maybe it might be important to give this job, actually flipping or specific principle to the second speaker. It might be, it depends on the teams. Might be important from the first speaker. Did you have questions about these three? Okay. 日本語で最近質問しないけど大丈夫かな。線引きプリンスプルっていうのがあって、プリンスプルっていうのは僕の中のディフィニッションでは、なんでこのバリューがそもそも大切かみたいな。ペアレンタルライトが守ってたら、なんで親権がそもそも大切かとか、チョイスが守ってたら、なんでチョイスがそもそも大事かみたいな。そのアーギュメントを言って、インパクトをつけたり、プリンスプルを言うんだけど、相手より引いてようと思ったら、さらにそこからもう一個深みに、特にこのプリンスプルはこういう状況において大事っていう感じの線引きっていう技があるんだけど、そこでも差をつけれるよって話で、もし相手が、いや、チョイスは大事だよねしか言ってなかったら、いや、チョイスは大事なんだけど、こういう時は大事じゃないんだよねっていう感じでドローイングライン、線を引くことによって、あ、確かに大事じゃないかもしれないっていう感じで、ちょっとバードメントセット。だからここね、パブリックサーバンツがコンセントしてるとか、確かにコンセントっていうのはベーシカリー大切かもしれないけど、 まあ、特になんか仕事を探す上とかパブリックサーバントになる時のコンセントっていうのはそんなにアブソリュートじゃないよねみたいな感じで言ったら、まあ、コンセントのなんかそのジェネラリーなインポータンスは認めつつも今回のケースは違うんだよっていう語ることによってそのスペシフィックにもっと差をつけるよっていう技がある。それをすることによってバージョンを目指せると。まあ、この3つぐらいベーシカルに覚えておけば使えると思います。で一番使いやすいのはフリップ。プラを語ればいいだけだから頑張ってブラックマーケットが一番有名かな。相手が守りたいやつを頑張ってプラでひっくり返すかアットリーストタイに持っていけば別に他の17人になって分かる。Yes. Then, if you have questions, please give me. Okay. Next. Okay. Decide how to carry out your strategy. You decided your strategy now. Next, how to carry out your strategy. Then we need 2 steps to this. First, make signpost. Second, think about contents of the arguments. Okay, signpost. It is important to make signpost so that judges can easily understand your conclusion and the strategy to meet the BOP from your team. I was wrong, making the BOP, and after that, you're making a strategy. After that, you will make signpost. Okay? Sure. For example, this has allowed public servants the right to strike. You have the first 2 arguments. First, why the right to strike is fundamental right for every worker, including the public servants. Then you can prove the importance of the right to strike. Secondly, why even if job of public servants are essential and they have consent, still public servants deserve the right to strike. Then it's important that putting the good wording so that judges can easily understand, oh, these teams are affirming the motion, right? In the first site. Then if we say this, we can clearly understand the conclusion, we can clearly understand the strategy to make even if on their strongest argument. So if you can prove this, you can win. So it's important to care about signpost. Okay. But there's no answer for the signpost. Maybe you can create the other way to approach the BOP of the signpost, BOP of this debate. But I will make like this. But let's learn how to, let's practice. Then, okay, second. Then finally, let's think about contents. For the first time, we will talk about arguments. Then, the 4 things are important in BP when you think of the arguments. First, finish your arguments by explaining from the premise to second principle explicitly. Do materialization well. Secondly, especially in BP, use case study or analogy to effectively persuade the judges. Thirdly, put preemption as much as possible based upon your predictions. Like if you think, Oppo will say, we protect public servants without the right to strike, they can be protected by the law. It is important to put preemption on the context of the workplace. Why alternative way doesn't work? The power of right to strike is very unique to protect the workers. Like this, if you, in the prediction part, you predicted they might stand for the alternative. If you think so, it's important to preemptively deny the existence of the alternative way from your first speaker. And the fourth, put value judgment impact on the nearest mechanism to happen. The nearer the mechanism is, the easier to finish arguments, and the more difficult to be refuted by the opposite side. Maybe I have already explained the importance of the part 1, from premise to second principle, and the part 3, I will explain the importance of the second and the fourth. The importance of case study, especially in BP, I think it's very important. In many cases it's important, but especially in BP it's important, case study or analogy. 3 reasons. First, because we have the case study, we can put concreteness on our arguments. It will be easier and quicker for judges to visualize the harm and the benefit of what you said if you have the case study. This is especially important in BP because you don't have time to explain, because your team only has 14 minutes and only have the preparation 15 minutes.
in order to persuade the judges effectively, it's important to use the case study which people can visualize the arguments very soon. Then, this is important. Proving the concreteness is extremely important because that very often judges will devaluate your argument just by saying, oh yeah, I understand your argument logically, but I cannot imagine the situations very precisely. So your argument is not so persuasive compared with the closing side. Those excuses very often used. Maybe you can understand in the future. So it's very important to pretend to have concreteness. 具体性、concrete. 具体性を先に持ってくるのが大事。By having a case study. Secondly, why the case study is important, so we can put authority on our entire speech just because you have case study. That means we can improve our manner. If you have a case study, judge will recognize you as a smart person. This impression will increase the authority and make your entire argument sound persuasive. Maybe, as I said, judges are very weak as the authority of the people. At the moment, judges think, oh, this person is very great. Maybe judge is very easier to listen to your speech and take your arguments. So it's important to increase the authority of you by posting your case study. まあ、賢い人の言うことはよく聞こえるから賢く振る舞えよっていう話でケーススタディ持ってたら、このディベーターは一人違ってる。これで maybe your speaker score will be changeable by 3 over 2 over 3 points. Thirdly, more importantly, why the importance the case study is, we can add reality to our arguments. It's very difficult to deny the reality by logic. So if you have the case study and some reasons to support the case, your arguments will be so strong that opening and closing opposition cannot beat, even if they have many logical reasons. But if you do not have any of reasons, maybe you cannot justify. But if you have a case study and you have some reasons, you can justify the case and you can say, oh, they are having reasons. But actually this is happening. We are talking about reality, they are neglecting reality. Like this, we can add the very important reality. And especially in the BP debate, also this is important, because in BP debate, sometimes it's necessary for you to talk about very big scale things. Because in order for you to differentiate with the opening team and closing team, it's important to talk about different harm. For example, opening half talked about individual harm. If you want to talk about society harm, it's very important to explain the mechanism of this. But as the larger the mechanism impact is, the more difficult for you to explain the mechanism. That's why it's very important to have the realistic case study in order to persuade judges so that this very large mechanism is actually happening in reality. That's why it's extremely important to have the case study. なんか BP ディベートはいろんなことを言うから、いろんなことを言える、いろんなことを説明しないといけなくて、で大きいハーも言ったりするとか、普通に BP やモーションがすごい壮大だったりするから、なんかそのインターナショナルリレーションみたいなねことを話さんといけないんだけど、そういうのって結構ほんまにケーススタディがないとマジ実感せえへん、実現できへんからです。実感そのほんまにそれは起こりそうって思わへんから、それを出すためにも実際アメリカこうしたやんとか、実際チャイナこういうふうにしてるやんとか言ったら、確かにねってなる。こういう感じでそのケーススタディを持ってかんと結構リアリスティックから離れていくからすごい大事。で、also this is important because the proportionality of judge's mind, the priority on logic, priority of reality, is very changeable. Some judges think put too much priority on reality. Some judges put too much priority on the logic, or the vice versa, or the very balanced. But I don't know what is the emotion of the judges, so important to prepare both of the actor. Who think reality is important, who think logic is important. So it's important to have case study. Do you have questions about case study? Okay.
How do you choose case study? Because if you choose like a too specific, I mean like a very famous but still too specific, then it sort of like narrows down your context, right?
Yes. Case study. Yeah, it's important to choose the more relevant and more famous case study. Even if you have the very specific case study, if judges cannot understand, don't know that case study, anyway you have to explain the very long mechanism, right? So it's very difficult to use. That's why
it's better to choose the relevant and the very famous case study. But even if that case study is not so familiar, I think it's better to use because you can pretend to be smart. You just think, not having known this case study is my fault. So, this debater is very good. Right? I have to increase the speaker score by 2 or 3, maybe. So it's important. But depending upon too much on the case study is bad. Also, you have to justify why that case study is true by the logical reasons, by examining the incentive of China, US, or the ICC, whatsoever. ケーススタディどれでもいいよってわけじゃなくて、ちゃんと一番ディベートに関係しそうなやつで、ちゃんと人々がジャッジが知ってそうなやつを選ぶのが超大事。だから日本人のジャッジやったら、多分日本のエグザンプルでいいね。なんか家計学とか言えばいいんだな。でもそのなんかあれ海外のジャッジとかやったら多分それ言っても分からへんから、なるべくアメリカっぽいやつ選ぶ。オバマ。そういう感じの工夫がいる。OK かな Do you have questions about case study? Okay. Lastly, about construction of the strategy, it's very important. It's very, very, very important. In BP, important putting impact on nearest mechanism from the machines. In BP, it's important to provide less chances to refute to the arguments of opening teams. Because we have two oppositions, especially closing team, have plenty of time to think about the refutations for opening teams. They can create 100 refutations for the very important case of the opening government. So if your impact needs many mechanisms to prove, you are giving many chances to refute. Therefore, it's important to choose the nearest mechanism to focus on. This is not always true, but the vast majority of cases it's true. I will explain later. For example, this out of the ban tobacco, like your opposition. You want to protect the life of people because life of people is very easy to protect, right? So opposition should argue the harm people cannot smoke tobacco, which is nearest and inevitably happens if we take motion. 絶対に起こるやん。わかる？バンしたら吸えへんやんっていうシンプルな。絶対に起こるから very nearest. But if you choose the argument, for example, if we ban tobacco company will go bankrupt, people lose job and die. This will be very impactful because people will die, right? That's why you might choose this direction, but it's wrong. Because we need many mechanisms to prove, then government can refute easily. For example, firstly, company don't go bankrupt, so easily JT has another alternative way to economically stabilize. Secondly, even if the tobacco company go bankrupt, people can find another job easily. Thirdly, even if people cannot find a regular job, they can find a part-time job to live. Fourthly, even if they cannot get a part-time job, they can get welfare support. So for those reasons, the argument from opposition is very unrealistic. If this is refuted like this, the vast majority of cases from opposition will die, right? So at the end of this debate, that there's no things to be evaluated from the opening. That's why this is very terrible situations. You should get the first or third. That's why it's important to put impacts on the nearest mechanism from the motion. It's very important. And also, mechanism which is not contingent upon the very variety of the consequences. For example, the consequence of election. Maybe if you can say, if this election is successful, it is justifiable. If you say so, then your burden of proof is that this election is very likely to be successful. Then if opposition will prove this election is very less likely to be successful, your mechanism will be taken away. So it's important, regardless of the success or the failure of election, the process in and of itself is very likely to be unjust. That's why we will propose that. It's very important to talk about the nearest impact of the motions. Or if you want to talk about the consequences, it's important to classify. In terms of the success cases, for those reasons, it's good. And also, even if it's failed, for those reasons, it's good. Justifying in both cases, the convenient cases or inconvenient cases is important. わかるかな？いっちゃんモーションから生じる近いところに そのインパクトをハームをしっかり持ってくるのが大切。バンタバコやったらもうタバコがなくなっちゃうことのハーム。タバコがなくなっちゃうことじゃなくてタバコの会社がなくなっちゃうことになっちゃうと結構いっぱいいる進みが。そうなってくるとそこのいっぱいおるところがいろんなやつからこうパニッされるからそうなったんだなところね。からなるべく進みがいらへんところでとどめておくのが超大事。でそのハームをいかにかっこよく語れるか。近くてもタバコを吸えないっていうハームをしっかりかっこよく語れればいいじゃん。If you can prove the suffering of the absence of the tobacco is detrimental for the individual, it will be enough reasons for you to oppose the motions. It's important to talk about this. It's very important in the BP strategy. Then, I said there might be some cases this might not be good, but vast majority of cases it's good. But sometimes because you are escaping from the big burden, it gives the chances for the closing to talk about impactful arguments, right? The closing teams can say that we can protect the most vulnerable people by providing the very far mechanism. If the closing are able to achieve a very far mechanism, the impact of the government closing will be larger than the government side opening team. In that case, closing might win you, but in vast majority of cases, it's very difficult. And also, opening have to not have enough time to construct good arguments. So I think this will be the best way for the usual opening teams. もし、インパクトフルだけでメカニズムと言えみたいなやつをから逃げたらオープニングがもしかしたらクロージングがそれを説明しちゃった時にもしかしたらクロージングに抜かれるかもしれないもしかしたらねだからその危機はあるけどでも普通にその危機の可能性よりかは普通にその黒い遠いやつをやって反応されるのがやばいのでこれをしっかりやってくれたみたいな質問ある人Then preparation. This is just preparation, right? Okay. Through the examination of the wording of the motion, prediction of the overview of the debate, let's decide the BOP and decide the strategy to meet BOP. Then make signposts to carry out the strategy. Then think about the contents. Then contents should be following these 4 parts. Then these procedures, you can make so strong case and arguments which is not beaten by the closing at the end of this debate. This is a unique importance of the BP preparations. Do you have questions about preparation? Choice. Take a break or let's talk about the speech of opening teams. We are not making speech. Next part is speech. So, 休憩を取るか、このままスピーチまで行っちゃうか。スピーチまで行こう。よし。
スピーチどれぐらいですか？
そんな長くない。
スピーチ終わってから一回挟んでクロージング。
Speech, opening speech, especially. The speech basic for every speaker is make your speech look like fulfill the expected role in DP, make your argument sound relevant, important, and well materialized. And this is not important というか、true natural というか、common sense. Then speech by the Prime Minister. Important. First, set up a debate well. Explicitly materialize your arguments. Rhetoric のスペル違う structure. Rhetoric and structure is important. First, rhetoric means 習字法みたいな。どういうふうにいい感じに言うかってことね。structure が構成。explicit がすごい明示的にいい感じにアーギュメントを作るんだよな。Set up the debate. Prime Minister have to provide a proper definition of debate and the model you stand for. Every judge expects you to set up the debate so that judges can judge the debate easily based upon the setup you make. So be clear and be fair. If you set up unfairly or you forget setting up the debate, I think judge will hate you. Then judge will decide the winner. So you will lose. So please set up in time to speech. It's extremely important. If you are in OG, if you are not doing setups, you are very likely to lose. Okay?
or you are very likely to be hated, even if you. It's very important. Really, it's important. Really, I said very many times this for the sophomore in last year, but in the quarterfinal of the novice West, some cute girl forgot defining the motions from the OG and successfully lost. So, Yuri-chan no kyo. So, please do that. Please. And conversely, it's semi-final. Conversely, as long as you set up the motion fairly, judges think, oh, thank you. At least OG fulfills some role and contributes to the debate. So you can get some credit in terms of role fulfillment, right? This can be the reason why you can win. Because even if your argument is very bad, if the CG is also bad, then if you compare judge will compare OG and CG, yeah, both arguments were bad. But at least OG made good definitions. That means that OG fulfilled their role. That means they're contributing to the debate. That means that compared with the CG, OG was comparatively better. Like this can be the reason to win. That's why please do this. Please do this. Really. And this is very important to increase your authority. If you are setting up debates very strongly or very fairly or very handsomely, judges think, oh, this debater is very experienced. That means the other thing they will say in the future will be very persuasive. That is important. Then I will tell you what is the bad definition of debate. With the international criteria, which is written in the world's judge briefing, so please follow this. What is bad definition of a debate? That is the scoring. We say scoring. I don't know exact meaning, but I say bad definition of debate, scoring. Square means invalid definition of motion. Then first definition, which neglects the important requirement from emotions. For example, this has to ban all abortions. The PM say, we exempt the rape case. Obviously, this doesn't follow the requirement of motion, obviously. So invalid. Second case is very difficult. Extremely narrow definition. That is to say, narrowing. But even if the definition logically sounds affirm or oppose the motion, logically, it is illegitimate to extremely narrow down that case. For example, this has legalize marijuana, the government. If PM set up, we legalize marijuana only for watching. Okay, only for watching. We don't allow the usage of the marijuana to release the stress, like entertainment. If you hear this, the definition itself logically makes sense in very small portion of usage of marijuana because they are legalizing marijuana, right? So it might sound legitimate, but in international competitions, this excludes vast majority of average reasonable usage of marijuana. So this is the illegitimate definition. But the problem is that reasonable usage, the average reasonable, this is contingent upon the subjectivity of judges, right? So even if the case by the government is very narrow, some judges will take that. Then if judges say, I think it was reasonable, it turns to be reasonable. The judge is a king of debate, even if they are irrational. So this is very controversial, but in definition, in the rule, this is written like this. So please follow this, okay? So narrowing down is bad, but it depends upon the subjectivity of judges. So please be flexible. Then it's better for you to make even if arguments. Even if their definition is proper, still we can win. But before doing it, even if we really think this definition is illegitimate, doing definition challenge is important. This definition is bad because this will narrow down the cases which excludes vast majority of reasonable cases. If you prove how this is reasonably bad, maybe judging will take it. This very explicit explanation is very important. I will explain later from the LO part. Then proper setup debate. 5 things important. follow the important requirements from the motions. Second, include vast majority of fair cases, as I said. Third, very clear what you support and what you oppose. First, it's very important. Fourth part is very important. Very clear about the very important premise of debate. A premise which is affects the both GABA and opponents, especially is important, I think. For example, this has to allow individuals to pay to be exempt from compulsory military service. なんか徴兵制から逃れるためにお金払ったら徴兵制行かなくてもいいよみたいなことね。で、amount of payment people need is a very important premise that affects the both of government and the opposition sides, right? なんかお金の量によってガバもオポもなんかいろいろ言いたいことが変わってきそうや。なんか3円かも1000円、3円かもしれへんし、5万円かもしれへんし、100万かもしれへんし、わからないや。So it should be very clear from the beginning of the debate. Okay. Especially in terms of setup, clarifying the very important premises, which affects the both of the teams, are very important. 5 important things is to give opposition chances to confirm the setup. For example, if opposition stands up for point of information during a setup speech, you should take that. If you finish your setup, it's better to offer the chance of point of information about setup. Okay, do you have any point of clarification about my setup? Okay, no challenge. Therefore, let's confirm. Okay, it's important. If you neglect the clarification of the other side, judge will think, oh, you are very mean, right? That's why it's important to take the especially clarification from the other side. This is a proper setup. Then this is the first point of the PM speech. The secondly, in the PM speech, what is important is explicit materialization of arguments. By making use of the rhetoric and structure of speech, you have to increase the persuasiveness of the argument so that you can attract judges. As I said earlier, making good expression is extremely important, especially in BP. So please pretend to be a great debater. How? Rhetoric. First, let's emphasize the relevancy of your argument by good rhetoric. Maybe Masao said in his speech in this lecture, in order to connect argument to the motions, it's important to care about speech. This is like that. Please use the precise words which is written in motions, and also put the most relevant words on the subjective of your sentences. For example, intrinsic nature of tobacco will deprive the people of the ability to recognize the value of them. という感じで工夫をして頑張ってレレバンシー、このモーションの超関係ある全部のことをしっかり言おうっていう。その主語をこのモーションの主体、このモーションで一番大事なものを主語にして、これのせいでこれが起きるんだみたいな感じで、レレバンシーを上げていくみたいな。そういうコツコツとした努力がすごい報われると。Secondly, appeal the emotion of judges so that judge will get good impressions. Very realistic illustration of the problem, or laughable joke. Also, joke is important to be attractive because judge will get tired, right? If you can make judges smile, the judge will like you. Then you can get first. I think it's, especially in break run, it's important to get atmosphere of the room and pretend you are the first. It's important. Then structure. Structure is important, not only for making your argument easy to understand, then also making your argument sound very great. And when materialized, then please not throwing 3 points. First, conclusion comes first. Right? Come on. Secondly, be clear about what you are talking about now. Judges want to know what you are talking about now. For example, context, benefit of the plan, comparisons, or preemption, or whatsoever. This is important because judge will listen to your argument as you say. That's why even if you are talking about preemption of context, if you are not clearly saying this is preemption, judges don't think this is preemption. That means your strategy to preempt is not to be evaluated. That's why it's important to clarify this is preemption. For example, I will explain the context of this debate. They might argue the children is blah blah blah, but we say it's not true. The vast majority of the cases, children are blah blah blah. 3 reasons. Firstly, because like this, if we appeal the judges, well, I'm doing preemption. I'm already caring about what opposition might stand for, but we will override this kind of situations by providing 3 reasons. If we say so, judges will take note like this. So it's important to explicitly say your argument is doing this job, doing preemption, clarifying the context, talking about the impact. That kind of thing is very important for judges to think it's materialized. If it's very clearly said, if you clearly said, I have clearly talked about context, I have proved the mechanism, I'm already finished talking about impact, judges will think, oh, there is context mechanism impact, good materialization, right? That's why it's important to explicitly talk what is important and what are you are talking about. Thirdly, do numbering. At least be clear about the distinction of your analysis. Numbering means that, oh, you have the many reasons, that's why it must be true. Irrational judges think so. So I think it's important to deceive irrational judges by number. And also, it sounds like structure. That means the more you have a structure, the more judges thinks you are materialized your argument. That means the less chances of the closing to take your idea. So it's important from the opening argument. Do you have questions about structure? Okay, next. So, speech LO, basically same as PM, unique position to propose definition challenge. If you have a counter proposal, it should be introduced in LO speech. Engage for the other side is required. Definition challenge. This is what I implied in the last minutes. Only when judge really thinks definition by PM is illegitimate, this will be accepted. It's important to explain why the definition is illegitimate and propose alternative proper definition of the debate. This should be done super explicitly. Unfortunately, without the division, so it is important to make even if argument to win the debate short. It's important to do explicitly, right? This because judges don't want to depend on the very vague challenge from the oppositions, right? So it's very important to be super explicit. Then speakers from DPM and DLO. Following the 3 things are main job of second speakers. First, efficient engage for the other side. But it's also important for the LO. And finalizing the argument from your team. If possible, taking the idea of closing a team. That is to say, doing dumping. I will explain it later. First, efficient engage for the other side. 2 things. First, protection of your PMLO's first speaker. Second, prove superiority of your side. And a very important clash. Clash means the place which there are many reputations. So, the place which there are many opinions, which is very difficult to decide which is true. まあ、いい感じにこうつながってるっていうか、オポーズとサポートしてる前提ですね。Protection of a first speaker. 2 cases. First, if first speaker is surprisingly not refuted from the other side. It's important to emphasize the irresponsibility of the other side to engage those. And remind the judges of the sophistication of arguments of first speaker, because judges are emotional and they think, oh, I forgot what the first speaker said. So it's important to remind the sophistication of the arguments of first speaker. Secondly, if first speaker is refuted, it's important to reconstruct the case so that even after being refuted, your argument still makes sense and remain important. Okay? What's now? Do you have questions about this? Okay, in the past, I thought the first part, the emphasizing that my partner's argument is refuted is not necessary, I thought in the past, because if we say this, the DLO will notice, oh, my partner has not refuted to the OG, so I have to refute the DPM. But I thought in the past this will be the notification of the DLO, but I changed that idea. It's important to emphasize because judges are much more irrational than I thought. They will forget and they think that argument is not important because DPM doesn't touch the argument of the government. Any of the people in the opening half didn't touch the argument. That means that that crash is not vague. That means that that argument is left legitimate. But if judge is very clear and rational, they can clearly understand the relevancy of the argument. They will still evaluate, but it's important of the argument. Even though my very beautiful partner have explained to you the important argument, they neglected this. It's important to put the irresponsibility of the other side. Okay, next. Second, prove superiority of a team in important clash, especially in premise. Basically, after the both first speakers' speech, there should be big clash in the context of debate, characterization of people, priority of value, etc. Because if the motion is fair, there should be the both case, convenient cases or inconvenient cases, good cases, bad cases. The clashes of premise of both arguments is very decisive factor to decide the winner of the debate. Because the premise is very influential for the consequences or the principal reasons whatsoever. So it's important to make efforts to show superiority of your sides on that clash. Then I think basically there are two ways to show superiority in terms of your proving the clash is also is better. First, prove why your premise is more relevant than their premise under the motion. We talk about relevancy. Secondly, prove why your premise is more likely to be true than theirs. Talk about likelihood. First, relevancy. Let's exclude the premise the other side wants to protect by examining the wording of motions and reasonably assuming the main context of this debate. Then you can diminish your argument. For example, this has a required religious school to provide a sex education without parental consent. ガバメントが親の同意なしで全部のリリジャススクールにセックスエデュケーションさせるぜって言いましたな。Then if Prime Minister says, even if we introduce sex education in religious school, it will not hurt anyone because recent religious people have been liberal, so they are not harmful. Then as LO or DLO, you can specify the most relevant context of this debate by saying if religious people are so kind, liberal parents will consent to introduce the sex educations. This can be also achieved in our paradigm, because in our paradigm, if there is consent, it's okay to do this. So the most relevant context of this debate is conservative context, where parents have strong reasons to oppose sex education in school. That's why the liberal context is out of the debate. That's why the premise doesn't stand. Like this, if you can prove where is the most relevant context, you can deny the entire case of the other side, and also you can strengthen the very important premises of our side. Then it's difficult for the closing side to take over your team. So it's very important to prove the superiority of a premises. Okay, do you have questions about this? Okay. But maybe this is the case when the other side is not so strong. Not talking about very relevant arguments. Second, prove why your premise is more likely to be true than theirs. Basically, it's very difficult to 100% deny their case. Even if you cannot completely deny the existence of their convenient premise, the characterization of the children, still you can deny the likelihood of the premise. Then if we can prove our premise is true in vast majority of cases, or by explaining the realistic nature and illustration of the characters, you can show the superiority of your side on the important question. For example, children. Even if Oppo concedes, very small portion of children can be mature enough, as government we can say, we can still show superiority by explaining nature of children in general and realistic illustration of the children. By doing so, we can say that our side is much more realistic. This is very important. It should be done explicitly. Because just because you are refuting, that doesn't look like you are doing comparisons. You are making superiority to your side. And so it's very important to care the wording you say. That even if we concede, very small portion of the children is like the opposition will say, but with the vast majority of the cases, our side is realistic. The frame or the rhetoric is very important to show the superiority of your side. Okay. Then basically, the policy government will take will care about vast majority of reasonable characterization of the people. That's why if you prove the vast majority of the cases our side, you can take policy. That means you can justify. Do you have questions about this part? わかるかな？日本語今大丈夫？今のとこ分かった？反対キッズ大丈夫？反対キッズと近代のキッズじゃないけど大丈夫？ Finalizing the argument from your team, it's important to emphasize your team has already met the BOP. メットっていうのかな？いうか、meetメットだよな。met the BOP. So it is essential to compensate or now important explanation to complete your argumentation. Like strategy to meet the BOP. For example, if your first speaker has not flipped your argument, the second speaker is important to flip argument to meet your burden of proof. Comparison, specific principle, relevancy, explanation of AP, etc. Maybe the flip argument or the principle argument, the comparisons, the priority, or the internal relevancy will be the lacked in the first speaker, because first speaker basically does not have the time. So the arguments are very likely to be general. So it's important for the second speaker to plus the relevance, uniqueness on the argument. Take the idea of closing teams. That is called as dumping. If you really finished meeting about it perfectly and you don't have anything to prove now, you can dump ideas so that closing teams feel difficulty to introduce a completely new extension in this debate. But maybe in BP novice this is very rare, and maybe vast majority of people cannot do. I don't want you to do because it's very difficult to prove your first BOP. That's why if you have time, please do that. If opening team have already suggested the idea of closing the team sounds weak because already it is introduced by the opening hall. That's why it is important to take the idea of the closing and let closing weak in this debate. If you have time, you can do this. Then, as I said earlier, this is the second argument of the second speakers. That means it's important to talk about importance of this argument. Because judges think that the most important argument is the PM speech and the protection of the PM speech. Then if you are not doing the proving the importance of a second argument, judges doesn't think, oh, this argument is so decisive factor, judges might neglect. So it's important to explicitly explain why this argument is important. Okay, this is the end of the opening teams. Do you have questions? Yes. 12分か。どうする？
一回飯挟んで。
飯食うか食わないかだね。